giving people the opportunity to tell that to their mentor, successful artists to tell that to their mentor is so exciting. I just want you to know that. I just want you to know that we're all walking around feeling that way about you every single day. And we're so grateful.
Well, I can die anytime now because
Please do not.
This is Arts Educators Save the World, where successful artists and their mentors talk about how arts education transformed their lives. Hey, welcome back to Arts Educators Save the World, a podcast where artists and their mentors talk about the impact of arts education on both of their lives. This is part 2 of a 2-part episode with writer, actor, comedian Billy Eichner and his college acting teacher and mine and guest co-host Jamie Salka's college acting teacher, Mary Poole. If you missed part 1, go back in your feed. You will love to hear the origin story of how we all came to know and love Mary Poole as our mentor in life and in acting. In this episode, we get more into the specifics of acting process and acting class and what Mary did for us as artists and how we've taken those really specific pieces of advice and processes and tactics into our professions as actors and writers and executive directors and all of the amazing career paths our lives have taken as a result of our work with Mary Poole. Enjoy. So now I'll put on my double nerd hat, right? My PhD's in something called the learning sciences, which is like theories about how people know and learn. And we know from that it is very hard for people to talk about their practice, especially when that practice is embodied. Mm-hmm. As you were describing, it's just really hard to do. Mm-hmm. We didn't give you any like, hey, think about these things, right? Which is one of the ways that it is easier for people, right? So this task is a hard task. And I want to maybe try to get a little specific around that and ask both Billy and Jamie around I said I want to sort of talk about the craftiness of it all. Mm-hmm. You know, we've talked a lot about the kinds of exercises and rituals and routines that we practiced, but we also did a lot of scene work, right? And each quarter we had a different style, a different genre, a different playwright. Can you talk about, you know, which of those experiences really shaped you as an actor and how, you know, any of those different ways of working, whether it was Noel Coward or, you know, Shakespeare or Sam Shepard, kind of how that shaped you as a performer?
That'll be so fun to listen to, but you have to answer that too.
Now the expectations are so high.
Sorry.
Broadly speaking, and I think about this so much, especially at this particular moment in my life, career, etc. You know, acting class, especially the way it's structured at Northwestern, like you said, Erica, Northwestern, by the way, was on trimester, at least when I went there. So there were like 3 sections to the year. And each section of the year, a sophomore, junior, senior year, you were tackling a different genre, like Erica said, style or type of playwriting. It was Greek drama in one third of the year. The next third was Shakespeare. The next third was Chekhov. You know, there was a comedy semester, all those types of things. That's how it's broken up. And what that allowed you to do is explore your range in this unbelievably beautiful way. That's really, just as you're kind of learning the basic skills of acting, you're also thrown into this incredible challenge of trying to tackle and figure out all these genres, right? In a way that, I'll be honest, as someone who did luckily end up making a career out of this, whatever it is I do, you know, you're not, I mean, there's like maybe, you know, Meryl Streep and three other people who are afforded a career which reflects that type of range, right? In terms of the opportunities that you are given. Because acting class is not the real world for 99.9% of the actors who end up making a living at it. Hollywood does not operate by the same rules. And the public, too, the audience, is not as intelligent, not as sophisticated, not as empathetic, not as curious as your acting class is, as a group of kids who came together to study acting, right? To be
Yes.
artists, to be creative. The outside world, the quote unquote real world, doesn't really operate like that. And I could only speak for myself personally, because I'm not Meryl Streep or Daniel Day Lewis or Tom Hanks or one of these people who has made their brand. Sorry to be cynical, that's not exactly the right word, but who has made their brand. I have range. I can do anything. Right? That's a very
Mhm.
small list of people, and a lot. I think 90% of the ones that make a career out of that came from the UK or came from which is just a very different mentality and is very like theater centric. You know, like America is not a theater focused country, right?
No.
And not particularly sophisticated, we all know. And so and so what I miss so much is the opportunity to just do anything and everything, you know, and to fail sometimes too,
Yeah.
you know, because that's what you're risking. And, you know, I didn't love everything equally. I'm sorry, I know, sacrilegious. I'm not a huge Shakespeare person. I have no burning desire to go do Shakespeare in the park. So I'm going to let Jesse Tyler Ferguson do that, you know, because there are other
Well, that's
actors
too bad.
there. Exactly. It's that reaction though. That's the opposite reaction that you get out in the real world. I'm just saying my personal taste, you know. And what I look to do now, and you have to be, I hope I'm answering your question, but um I'm trying to be super intentional. I'm always trying to get back to who I was in Mary Poole's class, honestly, just in terms of challenging myself, not falling back on things I've already done 7 times that I know I can do, that everyone knows I can do, you know, not relying on certain crutches, you know. That's not why I wanted to be an actor. You know, you want to be able to have range. That's the beauty of a creative, artistic life. But it's not necessarily the life, even when you're successful, that the quote unquote industry, because it is exactly that, an industry, allows you to do. And so I'm always thinking, especially at this point, how do I get back to who I was? Because that's really who I wanted to be and who I still want to be.
Why did you want to become an actor?
It's a very good question. I think the answer to that has evolved over the years. Um, I think when I was a kid and a teenager, probably around the time I was entering your class, I think it was a combination of things. I loved Hollywood. I loved theater. I loved the experience of seeing a movie or a play and analyzing it and seeing a great performance, right? I liked that. I had certain skills that led me to getting on stage in the first place. It was actually singing. Had a really good singing voice as a kid in a kind of a Broadway style that you can't argue with. You know, people, you either like have the vibrato or you don't. You know what I mean? And I was born with that and kind of recognized it, and I really enjoyed doing it. And then when I got on stage in elementary school or in my living room from my parents, the reaction, I got an enormous amount of validation from it. People loved it, you know? And it kind of, the two sides of that fed each other. Like, oh, I want to get better at this. You know, singing, I ended up not caring about as much actually, but I wanted to get better at acting, right? And I liked the feeling I got because I could tell that people liked me, liked when I did it, you know?
Ah,
So that feeling of validation was very strong, you know, but it worked hand in hand and always has with loving the craft and wanting to get better at the craft and really enjoying figuring out the puzzle of playing a character and figuring out a character and different facets of the human condition and different types of people that I am not. And if I'm being brutally honest, I think now that's flipped a little, or the wanting to practice the craft, become the person again who I was in acting class in terms of the variety of things I can do. And because I really I love trying it. I love trying to be good at it. I like trying to figure it out. I like the craft of it. I like the art of it. And now that this is what I meant by being honest, I've gotten a lot of validation over the years, right? That's not as important to me anymore. I've been honestly way more validated than I ever thought I would be, to be honest. I was like the quirky gay character actor. No one ever knew what to do with me, and so, but what remains really important to me is the craft of acting. I love
What the hell does craft mean, Billy?
Craft?
Yeah. How are you using that?
What do you mean? How am I using the word?
Yeah. Because you know what it means quite clearly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if it's just acting, if it's consciously acting, if it's, I don't know. What is it?
Do you mean, why am I using the word craft? Is that what you're asking? I guess I'm talking about loving the process.
Okay, that's good. Process.
Loving the process of embodying a character, of figuring out who this person is.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it makes sense. And I wanted to clarify that for you, because when you say craft, people are like, oh,
vague.
Yeah. And it's it belongs to something, some club or something. I don't know.
I see. I know what you mean.
What you're just talking about now is the process of developing a character, of discovering a character.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting Mary Poole acting class right
now.
No,
I know. I'm loving it so much. Yeah.
And really, could you please get yourself a job doing some Chekhov?
Oh.
I'm working on it. Yeah.
All right. You could do Chekhov in the park.
But that Chekhov in the park, that's actually not a bad idea. You and Jamie might be the only ones that come to that. But
I don't think so.
No,
Erica will also come.
I would be delighted.
I just want to say that I'm busy that night. I'm really sorry.
And all the nights.
Jamie's like, can we have children adapt Three Sisters for once? But
Jamie, what was your kind of inspirational? Do you remember kind of which aspects of getting into plays and characters was the most, I don't know, resonant for you or carried you into your...
This is somewhat embarrassing to admit many years later, but I went to Northwestern knowing for sure that I wanted to be an actor. It was the only thing I wanted to do. I was absolutely sure of my path. The reason I was so confident was because my close family friend was David Schwimmer, and Friends had just become one of the biggest things in the world. And I just thought that's the kind of thing that happens to people we know in West LA. So I'm going to follow
Northwestern
David's,
for acting.
That's right. David Schwimmer had gone to Northwestern, and I was like, I'm going to go to Northwestern. I'm going to get on a sitcom, and I'm going to be incredibly famous. There's no other option. That's definitely what's going to happen. And I walked into Mary's class with that attitude. And I remember being a little bit shocked when I got into class at what it was like. It feels much more raw and scary, almost terrifying on a little bit,
Oh,
which is really interesting, and I think I'm experiencing a little bit of it now on this, in this recording again, where I'm so glad that we get to talk for a little while. The podcast format is really conducive to going to really like taking you on a journey. The person that you were at the beginning of this episode is a little bit different than the person I think everyone got to hear as you were working with Billy just a few minutes ago on what it is that he's looking to pursue in the next phase of his career and his acting journey. It was much more pointed. It was a little bit challenging, but still in that incredibly heart place that is the hallmark of where you come from. So there was something. I felt a little bit scared for Billy. It's like he has to go a little bit deeper to answer it. You're asking him to go deeper. And again, you're providing the foundation or the bedrock or the scaffolding to trust that he can. And so he did. And so, my own experience in your class was coming in with a certain idea of who I was and being pushed very gently to go deeper and ask, is there something else? Is there something else behind that? And I think I got that. I think I got that from you. I came out a very different person and in some ways feeling more myself. I'm hearing Billy talk about echoes of that, This is something.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the joys of being one of Billy's close friends for many, many years, coming on decades now, is that I've gotten to see the full range that Billy is capable of, as have you, Mary, right? I mean, there aren't, Billy, you've had this amazing career. And I think in a lot of ways, it was not an easy career to get off the ground. It took a long time. There were, just by virtue of ways that the business was closed off, when you were first coming up and you needing to find a way in. I think in a lot of ways you had to believe in yourself in a way that was more so even than people realize. I'm curious what that was like for you, but also from my own vantage point, I have seen the range that you're capable of. We saw it in college. We saw it after college. There aren't that many people in the world that know that you are one of those people that has a Tom Hanks-like range, that you are so funny and so, I think the persona you're best known for is sort of like an angry screaming guy, but that's really a one-dimensional version of who you even present as the screaming guy. That's a guy with a lot of range. But beyond that, some of us have gotten a chance to see you in early performances that were so moving, that weren't funny at all. That, obviously you bring humor to everything you do, but that were at heart like gut-wrenching. And, I think that your career is starting to reflect that. And I'm excited for the world to get to see more of that.
Thank you.
But I'm curious from your perspective what it was like. What did you take? I mean, I think that Mary really influenced the version of you that created Creation Nation and ultimately Billy on the Street. What did you take? I mean, we were doing Chekhov and Shakespeare and Sam Shepard, but that's not what Billy on the Street is. But Billy on the Street was still influenced, I think, by Mary. What did you take from Mary that you would attribute from those experiences?
To Billy on the Street specifically?
Sure. Or just like building your early career.
Well, I don't know if this is going to answer your question. But here's another memory of Mary. Opposite end of the Northwestern experience, the mantra story was, I think, the first week of her class. In one of the final weeks, end of my senior year, when everyone's panicking about the future, especially the actors, because we've been in this like beautiful cocoon of creativity, so protected, especially if you had Mary, you felt like you could try anything, do anything. And now we're going to New York or LA and we're going to see what the real world has in store. So, you're a little worried. I had tried out, and when I gave a commencement speech that Mary came to at Northwestern this past year, and I talked about this, made some jokes about it. But Northwestern had this showcase they would do where they would choose 10 musical theater students and 10 regular theater, I guess you would call it, non-musical theater students, and there was an audition. They picked 10 and 10. Those 20 kids went to New York and auditioned for agents and managers, but no one else got to, right? I think this is now called Showcase. And I was in the musical theater program in addition to being in Mary's class. And I auditioned for both of those things and didn't get either of them. Right. So which was disappointing. I didn't necessarily think it was the end of the world, but it just made me even a little more stressed because I wouldn't have that showcase, So Mary one day drove me home from class or from the theater building. She said, "I'll drive you home." And I said, "Okay," back to Rigid Davis, which is where we lived. And we got to talking, and I was saying that I was envious of another student that Mary knew, because that student had already had an agent and a manager from this showcase, and that student had a very specific comedic persona that they walked into the room with. And they were also a brilliant actor. But on top of it, just immediately had this, what seemed like a character ready made for a sitcom, right? I didn't have that at the time. Now, people who didn't know me then, which is most people, they might think, but Billy on the Street is that. Yes, I had to turn myself into that eventually to build a career off of. But at this point, I was just a guy doing Shakespeare and Chekhov and musicals and anything and everything. And Mary said to me, "But you have so much range. You have so much range," right? So as my career went on, and Jamie, so everyone knows, directed my live stage show, Creation Nation, and was essential in helping me put it together, and was behind the camera for the very first, what became known as Billy on the Street videos, and would stay up all night on his desktop learning how to edit, because we were theater kids, we weren't film kids, and he edited my first videos. And when it became a TV show many years later, I did ask him to be the showrunner, but he was too busy. But just so you know, Jamie is a huge, huge, huge part of my life, as more than just a friend, but a huge part of my career. So what I hung on to during Billy on the Street, more than, yeah, there's things about Billy on the Street I always tell people. They'll say, like, "Well, you're not acting on it, and I'll say, "Well, not in the traditional sense. It's improvised and the people are real, but there are certain lessons from acting class." Rule number one, I have to listen so closely to what the people are saying. I cannot go in with any preconceived notions of what they're going to say or do, right? Which is, acting 101, but like, I have to stay, quote unquote, in the moment with them in a very focused way. That's something you would take from acting class. But the truth is, what I really held on to is what you're saying, Jamie, and what Mary told me in the car, because somewhere in my head, I knew as Billy on the Street was taking off, I even had other friends of ours from Northwestern tell me, "Aren't you afraid you're going to get stereotyped as this guy?" Right? Now, when you're 32 and broke and you have no health insurance, you're thinking, "Please let them stereotype me. Please let anyone cast me for anything," But what I always held on to in my head, I was like, and especially as it started to get very popular, right? And I got cast on Parks and Rec, but it was basically to play Billy on the Street on Parks and Rec, which it was an honor to be on that show, and I love everyone involved, but I always was a little uncomfortable with that too, because I knew in my head, I was like, this is cementing an image of myself in people's heads that's so limited and so narrow. But I mean, how the hell were the people at Parks and Rec supposed to know that I did Chekhov in Mary Poole's class? They don't know. And so, but what I held on to more than during Billy on the Street, but in terms of making Billy on the Street itself, but what I held on to was for any fears of, you're just going to be Billy on the Street forever. You should do this for 50 years and make all the money you can make and just lean in, and you should be just lucky to have this. And most people would think this is the greatest thing ever. And in many ways, it was the greatest thing ever. And I love it. Right. But the reason, after 5 seasons of doing it on TV and another year of web videos after that, I drew a line in the sand. And I told everyone that I work with, this is it. I'm not doing this ever again, because Mary Poole said I have range. Right. And Jamie and my friends from Northwestern know, and I know, that I have it. And this is not all I'm meant to be in the world, even though it's wonderful and an enormous blessing, but it doesn't end there. Right. And so I held on to that. I held on to the fact that, Mary said I was good at Chekhov, and Mary said I could do all these things. And not only that, but Jamie and my friends also said I could do it, because they'd seen it. They weren't just being nice, right? So I held on to that. Eat your heart out, Jonathan Groff. Okay?
Yeah, that jerk.
I'm crying now too, see?
Mary, how many, not exact, but how many students did you have in your career? Thousands?
Oh, I don't think so.
25 at a time-ish, right? How many cohorts did you have?
I think I started teaching in 90. I mean, as a graduate student, I taught a couple of classes for non-majors or something. But I think I started teaching in 90. And if it's really important to you, I'll figure it out.
No. I don't need the exact numbers. I was just trying to sort of
that's about 30 years, between, 1990 to 2020, what recently. That's 25 kids a class is like 750 kids. So, somewhere between 500 and 1,000.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just reflecting on, when you said I care about each of you, that could be read as you care about each of the 3 of us, which is true.
Yes. And
I think what you meant was I cared about each of those 750 people. I think we are, and I say this not with ego, we are not super special in that way. I mean, we're on this podcast, and Billy has had an incredibly successful career, and so has Jamie, but there are 750 people who you cared for into the places that we are. And that is, in reflecting on that, I mean, that's remarkable, to think about this times 750.
Here's what I would say, though. I cared about each of them in the class and working with them. And did my best for them. And then there were some that I cared about because they were so deeply something or another. The way each of you were very distinct and remarkable people. Very often it was the intelligent kids. But everybody needed to be cared about and loved in the beginning because we were doing scary stuff, really scary stuff. And besides, I got to tell you, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds are kind of easy to love.
I mean, I've taught freshmen. They're also really hard to love. I mean, I guess where I would like to end, Mary is with, it was really interesting to me when we reached out that, you said, I love all of you. I love this. I don't know what this experience is going to be because I've never listened to a podcast. This is not my thing. And I guess I'm just curious, how you've experienced this in terms of, I don't know, hearing about your practice, hearing about our experiences and what that reminds you of.
This is a note I posted behind my computer, and John will attest to the fact.
And it says?
Mary is holding up a Post-it note that says,
"This is about them."
It's so incredible that you have that. I remember, in ways that are, I almost can't communicate the intensity of. I feel like my career and my life in so many ways is inspired by you. I don't know if you know that, how many of your former students walk around feeling that way. It's probably all of them. And I remember...
Oh, no.
I know you sort of demurely say no, but I'm just telling you, we've all had the experience of meeting a Mary Poole student out in the world that we've never met who also feels that way with this level of intensity. And I run a company, as does Erica, who's devoted an entire separate career to something very similar, which is being the person or the entity or company that believes in students in the way that we hope they'll believe in themselves. That comes from you. That's the legacy of having spent time in Mary Poole's acting class that we are spending entire careers trying to bring to thousands and thousands of more students. It's real. It's a real thing that happens in the world. And I just remember standing up in front of my young company. We've been running Story Pirates for 20 years now, but I remember in about the third or fourth year, which was much closer to the time I'd taken your class, standing up in front of the company and saying, I want everyone to know what this company is really about. It's full of some of the most talented comedians and improvisers and performers in the world, and you're all incredibly talented in and of yourselves, but this company is not about you. It's about everyone else. It's about the kids that we're working with. It's about the parents. It's about the teachers in their classes. It's about the principal at their school. And it's about the other story pirates that are not yourself. It's not about you. It's about them. And I've never heard you say that before, but I have been so inspired by the fact that that is your, I don't know, what is the word you said? Attitude, Billy? Style, right? Like, it's not a trivial word. It is pouring out of you. It has been for decades. And I am, I have been producing this podcast from afar. Erica's and Doug have been doing all the heavy lifting. But the reason I got involved in this podcast is because the experience of getting to tell your arts education mentor what they meant to you is so you spend your if you were influenced by a teacher who is as life-changing as some of the best teachers in the world, you spend the rest of your life thinking about it. Like every day. Like there does not a day that goes by that I'm not grateful for you. And like giving people the opportunity to tell that to their mentor, successful artists to tell that to their mentor is so exciting. And I just want you to know that. I just want you to know that we're all walking around feeling that way about you every single day. And we're so grateful.
Well, I can die anytime now because
Please
that's
do not.
the best.
Please do not die
Don't do it.
during this
Don't do it.
recording.
Maybe I should do it soon so I don't fuck it all up.
One quick thing, just because Mary's note said it's all about them, right, Mary?
This is about them.
This is about them. And you had the them underlined for people listening to this. And when you picked up that note, I couldn't believe it, because this is going to sound very LA therapy of me, but it's been good that every morning I keep like a very small, simple journal, right? It's very to the point. It's not very woo-woo or anything, right? But there's like 3 questions you ask, you write it down. Same 3 questions in the morning, same 3 questions at night, right? Every day.
Okay.
And the final question is, what quality do you want to show the world today? Right? And you write that down. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. It can be practical. And I said, it's about Mary. The conversation is about Mary. It's not about you. This was a reminder to myself, although I probably made it about myself anyway. But I said, make sure Mary knows how loved and appreciated she is. And it's about hearing what she has to say. And that's what I wrote down. And then you wrote, it's only about them, right? It's about us. And I wrote that it's about you. And I don't know, there's something lovely about that, probably. But I hope. But I also want to echo what Jamie said, because it really can't be said enough. And it's so important to me that you know how loved and appreciated you are, and that you are one of the most influential people in my life. The impact you've had on my life and so many others, it's kind of hard to put into words. But I just want to let you know how much I love you and appreciate you, and I'm grateful for you. And it's really one of the greatest things that ever happened to me, to be in your class and to just spend time with you. And even today, you grilling me a little bit about using the word craft, although it made me a little uncomfortable, I was also like, oh, yes, I've been missing this. This is so great. Like, I want this, although it will haunt me. I'm going to think about that. I'm still not happy with my answer, and I might have to call you to discuss it.
You can text me. Say it one more time.
I love you, and thank you for everything.
I wanted to hear all of that because it means so much. I love you, and I love you, and I love you. And I'd probably end up loving Doug, too.
Being an educator has always been a hard job. Being an arts educator has always been an underappreciated job. And we are in a time when that is especially highlighted. And one of the reasons that I make this show is to give people stories of these kinds of stories, because we forget with how ripped apart we all feel by even struggling to have enough teachers in our schools.
Yes.
That this is why. So thank you all for providing that why to everyone who hears these stories, because that's going to the theme of Arts Educators Save the World. It's these one-on-ones, but it's also this broad movement to say, this is what's going to get us out of the crap storm that we're in. So thank you all for providing that story for us.
Thank you, Erica.
I hope teachers know how gratifying it is to be scared every day when you walk in and then walk out with such gifts. I hope so. And yes, thank you so much.
Jamie, there's so many features of that conversation that I want to take and put in my pocket and be able to take out again when I'm back with my students in the fall, when I have the opportunity to talk to people about what a lifetime of mentorship looks like. I mean, I am reminded of both the length and the intensity of the mentorship experience we all had, first as college acting students, but particularly as Mary's college acting students. And then I was also, I guess, when you're going through something like that, especially as a teenager, you think you're the only one, right? And so you don't think of it in the scope of the mentor's life. But hearing Mary say that she had this experience with almost 1,000 people, the scope of that is just...
It's incredible. It's
incredible.
It's overwhelming to think about how deeply all 1,000 of those people's lives were touched, right? You and me and Billy all had Mary, but we had her at different times. So that conversation was a little bit like checking in with your siblings about what your parents were like at different stages of their lives. And
if your parents were rabbits.
Right, exactly. And mine were, so there's that.
So this tracks for you in your life as both a child and an acting student.
Exactly. I just, on some very real level, Mary, probably for you and me both, is one of the reasons that we're doing this podcast.
Yeah.
She's certainly one of my life-changing arts education mentors. And to get to have this conversation with her specifically is a little bit dream come true territory for me.
Well, and I was also really impressed with how vulnerable both Mary and Billy let themselves be in this conversation. It got a tiny bit thick, right? As Mary continued,
right? As
to
did
push.
Mary's acting class, right? I mean, that was not a simple experience. It was a really complex, rich, emotional experience for many people for years.
That's right. And as the conversation revealed, continues to be, which is amazing. So to take us out today, Jamie, we have this little game that you may know that we play, which is called Three Things, which is an improv game that I play with all my students. I play it with Whoop and Soccer, my theater company. And you have been voluntold to be part of the Three Things game today. So I'm going to give you, ask you a question, and you are going to respond with 3 different ways. So here is my prompt for you today.
And I'll just say, I can't wait, as the only non-improviser in a company of probably 700 of the best improvisers in the world. It's a thrill to be voluntold to do this.
This is a window into my teaching strategy, in case anybody was like, I wonder what kind of teacher Erica is. Oh, she's the kind that voluntells you
I
to
think
do
this
things.
is what it felt like to be in Mary's acting class. Terrifying, vulnerable.
Excellent. Well, okay. So, Jamie, how about give me 3 exercises that you would do with your own children if you started your own acting school at home?
I would say Zip Zop Zasha.
One.
That's one. I would say Silent Sadie.
Two.
I don't know what that is, but it's named after my second daughter. And
It sounds like it involves a lot of quiet time, which I think is a good parental acting exercise.
And I'm going to steal this one from Mary. Conduct your own symphony.
3 things.
There you
Those
go.
are fantastic. You nailed it.
That was the scariest thing that's ever happened to me.
And you nailed it. And I will give our audience 3 ways that they can get involved with the show, be part of our community, and help us to continue to tell these compelling stories. First, please like and subscribe Arts Educators Save the World on your favorite podcast platform. Second, rate us 5 stars and leave a comment. It helps bump us up in the feed, helps more people know about us, and helps us continue to tell stories. And 3, if you have an idea for a guest, if you would like to be a guest, if you have suggestions for how we can take this show to the next level, write us at artseducatorspodcast@gmail.com, and we would be delighted to be in conversation with you. More later with my new guest co-host and old friend, Jamie Selka. Onward together.
Onward. Thanks, Erica. Thanks, everybody.
Arts Educators Save the World is hosted by Erica Rosenfeld Halverson and produced and co-hosted by me, Alec Lev. Our executive producer is Doug Matica, and our audio producer is Justin Asher. Special thanks to our collaborators, the brilliant and talented Kate Baldwin, and our great friends at Story Pirate Studios, Lee Overtree, Benjamin Salka, and Amy Fiore. Original music is by Dan Lipton, and our artwork is by Lyra Evans. Check out our website designed by Cole Locasio at www.artseducatorspodcast.com. We're on Instagram at Arts Educators Podcast, and you can write to us with your questions and comments at contact@artseducatorspodcast.com. You can also find us at a place called YouTube. And wherever you're listening, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. It really helps the show. We're proud to be sponsored in part by the University of Wisconsin-Madison and the Gibb Faculty Fellowship. Arts Educators Save the World was created by Erica Rosenfeld Halverson and Alec Lev.